What if I told you that the most productive square footage in your entire garden has never had a single seed planted in it? Not your raised beds, not your containers, not your carefully amended soil. The space directly above them, the vertical space, the air you're not using. Right now, people across the country are watering their flatbeds every single day, fighting pests, fighting disease, watching their yields disappoint them season after season. And 2 feet away from those beds, a fence sits, completely empty. That fence isn't a boundary. It's a growing system you haven't switched on yet. Today, I'm going to show you 11 climbing vegetables, many of them ignored by modern gardening entirely, that will cover that fence, produce more food per square foot than almost anything growing on the ground, and in most cases, survive on nothing but rainfall once they're established. And before you skip ahead, stay with me through all 11, because plant number 4 carries a story that will completely change how you think about food security. Plant number 7 can produce up to 300 fruits from a single vine, and plant number 11 can feed you for up to 3 years from a single growing season. I'll say that again, 3 years from one plant. Let's get into it. Plant 1, Malabar spinach. Let's start by destroying a myth that has cost millions of gardeners their entire summer harvest. The myth: leafy greens and summer heat cannot coexist. That belief is completely wrong. It's just that you've been growing the wrong leafy green. Malabar spinach doesn't tolerate heat. It waits for it. When temperatures climb high enough to collapse your traditional spinach, when it bolts, turns bitter, and becomes completely inedible, Malabar spinach is just waking up. This plant climbs 8 to 12 feet in a single season. It wraps itself tightly around fences, trellises, wires, anything vertical, and turns dead airspace into a living wall of food. There are 2 varieties worth knowing: Bacella alba, deep green, thick, glossy leaves, and Bacella rubra has the same lush leaves but with dramatic deep red stems that make the plant look deliberately designed. Both are edible, both are productive, and honestly, both are beautiful enough that most people assume they're ornamental. They're not. They're food. Those thick leaves store water internally, which means once this plant is established in warm soil, it barely needs you. While other crops in your garden are demanding daily irrigation, Malabar spinach is pulling moisture it already stores and keeps producing anyway. Harvest from it, and it responds by pushing out more growth all summer, right up until the first frost. But here's where most people fail, and the failure is frustratingly simple. They plant it too early. Malabar spinach is deeply intolerant of cold soil. If soil temperature is below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius, the plant just sits there doing absolutely nothing, and gardeners see that and conclude it's a weak, slow plant. They give up on it. It isn't weak. You just planted it into conditions it refuses to grow in. Wait until soil temperature reaches at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius. Plant it then and watch what happens. It doesn't grow slowly, it explodes. This is a heat-proof, low-water, vertical food factory that most gardeners have never even tried. That changes today.
Plant 2, Hyacinth bean. Most gardeners grow this plant for its appearance and never once eat it. That is a significant mistake. Hyacinth bean, Lab purpureus, has been a serious food crop across Africa, India, and Asia for over 4,000 years. In those regions, it isn't ornamental, it's survival. But somewhere in modern Western gardening, it got reclassified as a pretty climber, and people forgot what it actually does. It climbs aggressively, 10 to 15 feet per season, covering fences and trellises fast. And while it's doing that, it's producing deep purple stems, bright pink-violet flowers, and glossy purple pods that almost look artificial. It genuinely looks like something from a design catalog. But behind that beauty is serious food productivity. Young pods harvested early eat exactly like green beans, tender, fresh, versatile. Let them mature fully, and inside you find protein-rich dry beans used in traditional cooking across entire continents. So from one plant, you get fresh vegetables now and dry protein for storage later. And here's the hidden advantage most people never discover. Hyacinth bean is a nitrogen fixer. It pulls nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and feeds itself. That means it doesn't need rich soil, it doesn't need heavy fertilizing, and it keeps producing even when conditions deteriorate. Dry soil, poor nutrients, low rainfall, most plants fold. This one adapts. Its deep root system reaches moisture far below the surface, while shallow root crops are already drying out. Plant 3. Yardlong bean. The bean that doesn't stop. This plant feeds millions of people across Asia and Africa. It's one of the most productive climbing crops in existence, and in most modern gardens, it's completely absent. That gap makes no sense once you see what it does. Yardlong bean, also called Chinese long bean or asparagus bean, reaches 8 to 10 feet, covers any vertical structure fast, and then produces pods that grow 18 inches, sometimes up to 3 feet long. They hang in pairs from the vine like green ribbons. And it doesn't produce in bursts, it produces continuously, all summer. No slow periods, no rest, just constant harvest. The reason it can do this comes down to genetics. Yardlong bean is a subspecies of cowpea, one of the most drought-tolerant plant families on Earth. Its root system goes deep, far deeper than most garden vegetables. While the surface soil dries out, this plant is still pulling moisture from below. In humid climates, once it's established, it often needs no supplemental watering at all after the first few weeks. A plant that climbs fast, produces nonstop, and barely needs water. But most gardeners fail with it, and the mistake is simple: they harvest too late. Young pods are tender, crisp, and perfect. Leave them too long and they become fibrous and tough. This plant grows so fast that timing becomes critical. At peak production, you need to check it every 2 days. And here's the key insight: the more you harvest, the more it produces. Regular picking signals the plant to keep pushing out new pods. Stop harvesting and it shifts energy into maturing existing pods, and production slows. One bonus: let some pods fully mature on the vine before frost. Open them, store the black beans in a cool, dark, dry place. Next season, plant again. No buying seeds, no dependency on a supplier. The plant feeds you and gives you the next generation for free. That's how food systems used to work before we forgot.
Plant 6. Bitter melon. This is the plant most people try once and never grow again. And almost always, the reason is a timing mistake, not the plant itself. Bitter melon Mamordica carrantia is rejected in many Western gardens after one frustrating taste experience. But across Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean, it's not just food, it's medicine. For centuries, it's been used in traditional diets for digestive support, blood sugar regulation, and general health resilience. The confusion comes from a simple error: people harvest it too late. This is a fast climber, 10 to 15 feet, covering fences with dense foliage and producing distinctive, bumpy, almost alien-looking fruits. And it's built for survival. It evolved in tropical regions with alternating wet and dry seasons, which means it developed deep roots, internal moisture storage, and strong drought resistance. Once established, it keeps producing when cucumbers and zucchini have already given up. Harvest when the fruit is still firm, bright green, and the seeds inside are still soft and white. At that point, the flavor is present but balanced, slightly bitter, manageable, genuinely enjoyable when cooked correctly. Wait too long, the fruit splits open, seeds turn red, and bitterness becomes overwhelming, inedible to most people. At peak season, check the vine every 2 to 3 days, pick consistently, and the plant keeps producing. Leave it, and production slows. This is one of the few crops that sits at the intersection of nutrition, medicine, and genuine resilience. Once you understand how to harvest it, it becomes one of the most valuable climbers you'll ever grow. Plant 7. Chayote. One plant, 100 to 300 fruits, single season. That's not a garden. That's not a row of plants. That's one vine. Chayote, Sikium egale, climbs aggressively, reaching 20 feet or more. It doesn't just grow on a structure, it takes over the structure. Pergolas, walls, large trellises, whatever you give it, it will cover it completely. The fruit is mild, slightly crisp, and extraordinarily versatile. Eaten raw, steamed, stir-fried, stuffed, added to soups. The young shoots are edible, the leaves are used as greens, even the roots are edible under certain conditions. This is not just a crop, it is a complete food system in a single plant, which is exactly why it has been a staple across Latin America, Asia, and parts of Africa for generations. In humid climates, once established, chayote produces almost entirely on rainfall alone. No irrigation schedule, no daily watering, just growth. But here's where most beginners fail completely, and it's the kind of mistake that wastes the entire plant before it starts. They try to plant the seed. Chayote doesn't work like that. Inside the fruit is a single seed that cannot be separated from the flesh without damaging it. When people try to extract and plant the seed alone, germination fails. The correct method: plant the entire fruit. slightly buried at an angle, with the stem end barely exposed above the soil. Warm soil, no frost risk. Do that, and the plant emerges strong and fast. One more thing, this plant is not small. If you give it weak support, a light trellis, a flimsy frame, it will collapse it. The combined weight of vines, leaves, and hundreds of fruits is serious. Before planting, make sure your structure can handle it, because once it starts producing, there is no slowing it down. Plant 8. Loofah. You already know what a loofah is, but you probably don't know it was once a vegetable. Loofah is a climbing plant, closely related to cucumbers and melons, and depending entirely on when you harvest it, it becomes two different things. Harvest young at 4 to 6 inches, it's a tender, mild vegetable, slightly sweet, similar to zucchini but lighter, widely used in Vietnamese, Chinese, and Indian cooking. Leave it on the vine until fully mature, allow it to dry, and the interior flesh transforms into a natural fiber network, a loofah sponge. No processing, no chemicals, just a plant turning itself into a usable tool. Food and utility from the same vine, zero-waste gardening in its literal form. Loofah climbs fast, 15 feet or more, covers structures quickly, and produces large yellow flowers that are also edible. Like many plants on this list, its deep root system means less watering once established. The critical mistake, people underestimate how long it needs. Loofah requires a long growing season. Plant too late, and you'll never reach the sponge stage. You may not even get significant fruit production. In cooler climates, start seeds indoors 6 to 8 weeks before last frost. In warmer zones, direct sow once soil is warm. Give it the time it needs, and you get both food and tools from one plant. Rush it, and you get neither. This plant rewards patience, but when you do it right, it's one of the most uniquely versatile climbers you'll ever grow. Plant 9. Cowpea. We're entering a different category now. Every plant so far has had strong drought tolerance, but this one is built for drought at a structural level that no other crop on this list can match. Cowpea, also known as black-eyed pea, southern pea, or field pea, is one of the oldest food crops in human history. Originally cultivated in West Africa, it spread across the harshest agricultural regions on Earth for one reason: it survives conditions that kill everything else. The reason is the root system. Cowpea develops a taproot that can reach 8 feet deep. While most garden vegetables are struggling in the top 6 inches of dry topsoil, this plant is pulling moisture from layers that essentially nothing else can reach. That's why it has fed communities in the Sahel regions where rainfall is unpredictable, and drought can destroy entire harvests for thousands of years. In your garden, that means one thing. Once established, this plant can produce food with almost no irrigation. It climbs 6 to 8 feet, wraps around fences and trellises, and keeps producing even when conditions deteriorate. And it gives you flexibility across multiple harvest stages. Pick young for green beans, wait for fresh shell peas, let pods fully dry for long-term storage beans, high in protein that last months, sometimes years. Like all legumes, it also fixes nitrogen, feeding itself and improving soil for future crops. The mistake everyone makes, planting too early. Cold soil below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees C, produces weak, uneven germination and sluggish growth. Wait until soil temperature hits at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees C. Plant then, and the growth is fast, the roots are strong, and the production is everything this plant is capable of. Plant 11. Winged bean. This plant should not be as unknown as it is. Winged bean, Physocarpus tetragynosipus, is considered one of the most valuable food plants in existence across parts of Southeast Asia and Papua New Guinea. And when you understand why, you'll start wondering the same thing I did. Why isn't everyone growing this? Almost every part of the plant is edible. Not some parts, everything. Young pods, eaten like snap beans, tender, crisp, slightly sweet. Mature seeds, used like soybeans, high protein, extremely nutritious. Leaves, cooked as leafy greens. Flowers, eaten raw as garnish. And the roots are thick, starchy, with protein levels far exceeding most root crops. One plant, multiple food types, multiple harvest stages. That is a complete food system by any definition. It's also a nitrogen fixing, feeding itself from the atmosphere and performing well in poor soil conditions. Add a climbing habit of 10 to 12 feet, strong production in warm climates, and the ability to produce with minimal water once established, and this plant checks every single box. The limitation is heat. Winged bean needs consistent warmth and a long season. It thrives in tropical and subtropical climates. In cooler zones, it's still possible. Start seeds indoors 6 to 8 weeks before last frost. Transplant when soil is warm, but understand that a short growing season will limit what it can do. Plant 11. Malabar gourd. Every plant on this list produces well. Some produce exceptionally well, but this one does something none of the others can. It doesn't just feed you through the season, it feeds you for years after the season ends. Malabar gourd, also known as fig leaf gourd, Cucumber tifficifolia, completely breaks the assumption most gardeners hold without questioning it, that vegetables are temporary. This one isn't. Given proper support, this plant reaches 30 to 40 feet. It will cover an entire wall, a full pergola, and a large fence structure completely, and produces large fruits, often the size of a watermelon, with white fibrous flesh that absorbs flavor easily, making it extraordinarily versatile. Soups, stews, slow-cooked dishes, traditional recipes across Latin America, Asia, and beyond. But here's the part that changes everything. A properly harvested Malabar gourd, stored in a cool, dry place, lasts 2 to 3 years, not weeks, not months, years, which means one growing season, one wall of Malabar gourds, can support your household for multiple seasons ahead. In traditional farming communities across the world, that's exactly how it was used. A wall of hanging gourds wasn't just decorated, it was a food reserve, a backup system, something families relied on when other harvests failed. It also has a deep root system, strong moisture retention, and good adaptation to variable rainfall, which means once established, it needs very little watering. But there is one major mistake people make with this plant, and it's not a small one. They underestimate it physically. They plant it on trellises, light frames, and weak structures, and by late summer, everything collapses under the weight of heavy vines, expanding foliage, and multiple large fruits. Before you plant this one, ask yourself one honest question. Can this structure handle 30 to 40 feet of aggressive growth and multiple watermelon-sized fruits? If the answer is yes, plant it.
If the answer is no, fix the structure first, because once Malabar gourd starts, there is no holding it back.
Here's the truth most gardeners never land on. The highest yield, lowest maintenance, most water-efficient growing space in your garden is not on the ground. It never was. It's the vertical space that most people walk past every single day without seeing what it could become. Every fence, every wall, every empty structure you have is a growing system waiting to be switched on. And now you have 11 plants that can do exactly that. Plants that climb hard, produce heavily, and in most cases, once they're established, take care of themselves. These aren't new inventions. These are old systems. Plants that fed entire communities for generations before modern gardening decided that flatbeds, heavy irrigation, and expensive chemical inputs were the only way. They're not. So here's what I want from you right now. Tell me in the comments, which of these 11 are you growing first? And do you have vertical space sitting unused right now that you're going to do something about? Drop it below. I read every single one. If this video gave you one plant to try, one mistake to avoid, one thing you're going to do differently this season, then you already got real value. That's what this channel is built on. Subscribe, because every single week, the content here is built around one goal, helping you grow more food with less water, less work, and smarter systems. I'll see you in the next one.